Here you go, Cory Mac.
What's your VW story? How did you get into VWs?
Well, for me, it was quite different than most people. We used to go to Glamis a lot as kids, and my father and mother, grandfather, the whole family used to go. And my dad used to have a quick buggy, and basically they'd sit around and wait until it was the evening time, and then they'd drag off 100 yards and put a light system out there, and basically here come all the hot cars, all the hot fast buggies, and back then they were all VWs, if not Corvairs, basically.
Uh-huh.
Nothing like you see today with the high travel and cars and all the V8s and everything. So back then they were either water pumpers or they were opposed VWs. So basically he'd wait until he saw the fastest car out there, and I mean I'm probably 13 at this point, and I can barely reach the pedals. and he'd wait till the fastest car got out there, and then he'd wait and let them whoop up on everybody, and then he'd send me after him.
Nice.
And I was only allowed to go out one time, make one pass, beat him, and then come back and bring the car back. So, and if he couldn't, and then the next time he'd build something bigger and badder. So, just one of those things where it was so cool for me to not only learn how to drag race at a young age, but learn more about mechanicals, as far as, building the motors, the parts of the transmissions, and understanding what it was like to drive a 4-speed versus an automatic. So I knew how to drive a 4-speed before I ever got to drive an automatic in any way, shape, or form.
Nice. So go ahead. No, please, go ahead.
And after that point, it just, as I got older, my dad owned a shop called D&D VW, and it was Dick and Dave's VW, and most of the stuff they did was high performance. When I became the age of 16, I got really involved in working at the shop and being there all the time, basically, because I was just sucking it up. I mean, I was like a sponge. I wanted to drive so badly, but the only way I could do it was if I learned how to work on them too.
Right.
So I went to high school and worked there, and I worked for my father-in-law, Larry Anderson, when he owned, it was custom wheels, and they were all VW wheels, and I used to weld wheels together for him for during the season while I was not doing anything in my dad's shop. That's where I worked, and basically, between those two jobs in school, my time was taken up, and they had an asphalt car. My father and his partner Dave. Dave was a driver, and my dad did all the mechanical work. Well, by the time I turned 16, I was itching pretty hard to drive this thing, and I'd go with them to Orange County or to L.A. County Raceway, and they had all the bug-ins, and I mean I was really jonesing for it. I had the bug really bad, and basically one day they finally let me drive this thing, and we went to the next 3 bug-ins and won every one of them.
Wow.
And it was like, this is for a young punk kid at 16, this was a dream come true for me, and basically after that point, Dave was out, I was in. But my dad always made me work for it, get the motor out, go through it. I met Ray and Bill from Autocraft back then, and this is backdating myself quite a bit because they were the guys that built all the midget motors. These were all motors that were just crate motors. You could not take them apart. Autocraft built them, they dynoed them, and they sent them out to all the midget guys.
Yeah.
Well, basically, I ended up doing it all. I mean, I did everything from pulling them down to put them together to put them on the dyno, and Ray Fitzpatrick, and Bill were just great to me. And then finally, we kind of started finding ways to make these work in our VWs, and it was rough fitting them in there. So basically, we needed to come up with another bigger and better way of doing things, and that's when you started seeing the K-Wells and people like Keith Longero that would bring out the no-dose dragster and all that. And
right.
But when I saw one of those, it was all over. It was like, yeah, we got to build a dragster. I've got to have one of these things. So we finally set forth and built one, and I mean, we couldn't have done it with a lot of people's help. Back then I wasn't as mechanically inclined as I wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
especially when it came to
Ooh.
with the help from Dave Foles, people like Dave Foles, Tom Shue, Wayne and his brother, and a lot of people that are still names today. I mean,
right.
My God, I mean, Jack Sacchetti and I ran in the same circles. Ron Loomis ran in the same circles, and these guys are all still doing it today, especially Ron Loomis. I mean, he probably ought to be next on your list because he is the innovator now of VWs, from what I can see.
You know what? Ron is on my list, and I just saw Jack a week before the U.S. Nationals. We had the Pro Stock Nationals out here, so I got to see Jack out here. So.
Excellent.
Yeah,
excellent.
Jack is an awesome guy. So tell me about that first car. What kind of car was it?
Well, we did a short dragster, basically, not as long as what Keith Londro had used, but Keith was using his for the sand and for the asphalt. So we just kind of went a little bit smaller, put a 2800 cc autocraft motor in it, and kind of went out there to see what we could do with it. And it was one of those things where this was kind of an unknown deal, you know. I mean, it had to ship it. I mean, we soon found out that the gearboxes were, you know, you had to be kind of easy on them. And,
right.
You know, of course, Gene Berg, with all the innovation that he had as far as, you know, the right synchros and being able to put the right gears in it where you could really slam them and keep them together. So Gene Berg and their whole family and I became, you know, very close in that aspect too. So I think I grew up in the best VW era there ever was, because these people were what changed the world. You know, as far as I'm concerned, they're the ones that really kind of the people I followed. And I mean, I knew that I wanted to just keep going quicker and faster any way, shape, or form we could.
Right.
I think the dragster ran, you know, in the 990s, 10.0s, that type of deal. But that still wasn't quick enough for me. And I think that's where, oh gosh, we finally just decided, hey, we got to do something, you know, stronger, bigger, faster. And that's where the funny car came along. So what we did, we took a Carmen Ghia and then basically chopped the top off of it, turned it around so it looked like it was chopped, added 12 inches to it, and had a guy make a mold of it. And underneath that, we had frameworks built as a chassis that would work for it. And then put a 2-speed in it, power glide, and I mean, again, with the help of people like Tom Shue and Dave Foles, we were able to make this thing work with another big old 2,800 cc autocraft motor. So, I mean, I was just always blessed with having the right people around me, because we all know this is not done by one person alone in any way, shape, or form.
Right. Now, I guess the big question would be, let's see, the one car was the Mac Attack, right?
Correct.
And the other one, wasn't it called the Blitzwagon? Is that right?
No. All our cars were always the Mac Attack.
Okay, always the Mac Attack. Okay, you have to forgive me.
That's okay.
So the Mac Attack, where is that car right now? There's a big, huge controversy on where that car is right now.
Well, now the dragster, that's a big unknown, because the dragster was actually stolen from me about 2.5 months ago, right beside my house in Lake Havasu, Arizona.
Really? And
it was stolen in the dragster trailer that we had built for just that car. So, I mean, if anybody knows that car, I mean, it had Cory Mac on it. It was black. It did not have a motor in it, but it still had the same rear end in it, and then all kinds of wallies and trophies and pictures of my father and I. And so we've never heard a thing about it. We have no idea where it ended up, but I figured if it ends up out there on the track or in the sand, somebody's going to recognize that dragster.
Absolutely.
So I'm hoping, I mean, this show came up, and I thought, well, my gosh, this is a great way to at least maybe get the word out there. So anybody out there does see this thing, please give my father or I a call, and I'll definitely hunt down these people, because they took some things from me that were not really something I could use, in a long-term instance, but sentimental value of these things to my father bring back so many good memories. So Wayne Davis and his brother, I mean, they did a lot of work on these cars. So a lot of blood, sweat, and tears went into these cars. Now, the funny car we have sitting in our shop in Fullerton, California, and it's funny because the body and the paint and everything on that car looks as good as the day we put it down.
Excellent.
So we're going to restore that car eventually. Kind of talked to some people at NHRA about putting it in the NHRA museum someday. I'd love to bring it out again, but it's just so hard with my schedule to keep going and try to do two things at one time. But it is a car I'd like to restore with my father and bring out again someday. It's just kind of a blast from the past type of thing.
Well, that's a big thing. People, when they found out that I was going to be interviewing you, I actually got two big questions for you. The first one was, do you still know how to drive a stick?
I still know how to drive a stick. Yes, I do. That's something. It's like riding a bike. I can never forget it.
And the second thing was, are you going to come? Would you come back out to a Volkswagen event ever and race again?
Well, if we could ever get the funny car back together in a situation where it was raceable and I had the time to get away from the schedule of the Top Fuel car and kind of get back at it, I would love to come. Even if I was able to just come to kind of walk around and, kind of watch what's really gone on. I mean, it's changed so much since I've stopped driving VWs and stopped working on them. Right. I'd probably have to hook up with Sacchetti and everybody just to figure out how to do it all again.
Well, now, are you amazed? I don't know if you've noticed how much the speeds have actually increased in the cars because of turbos.
That's one thing that, in the very end of my deal, I had the K-Wheels build me a turbo motor that I used in a buggy and then put back in the dragster and took it out to play with on weekends that I wasn't driving the Top Fuel car, and I couldn't believe the difference in power, and especially for some of the pro stock cars now when they're turboed. I mean, my gosh, I'm blown away at what the intercooling and the progression of the turbos and the longevity of them now. I mean, they didn't used to last very long when we used them.
Well, I don't know if they necessarily still last any longer. They're just going faster. But now you've kind of become the patron saint of a guy who went from VW drag racing to the ultimate in drag racing. Can you kind of tell me how that transition happened?
Well, the biggest thing for us is after the funny car, we built the funny car and it ran great. Had some really great times with it. It ran 790 pretty much at best. And at that point in time, we took the body off the car and I put an altered body on it and tried to lighten it up because the bodies were so heavy back then. And the car actually ran 740 at 177, I believe, the last time I drove it without a body on it. So, I mean, it definitely increased all the way around. And at that point in time, my father and I sat down and said, where are we really going here? I mean, if we really want to be serious about drag racing, what's my next step? And, well, alcohol dragster seemed to be the most likely next step. And, I mean, I knew from a very young age what I wanted to do, and that was drive a Top Fuel dragster. Now, the way to get there was a whole different deal. So we went ahead and started building the alcohol dragster, and the Frameworks built that car. I hired a guy named Ora Vasquez, who had been out there working with the late great Blaine Johnson and Alan Johnson, and they were the kings of alcohol dragster. So I figured if I'm going to get a guy, I want to get a guy that's coming from the best team out there. And Ora Vasquez taught me everything I know about a blown motor from the top to bottom, from clutch to rear end. I mean, he really took me under his wing and taught me everything. And for that, I'll always be grateful. So it's amazing the people you meet along the way and what they do for you. But I have to say he was a huge guy in my life that just made a world of difference. So, I mean, 2 years in the alcohol ranks, I remember the first race we went to, he said, let's get our feet wet, let's go to Boise, Idaho, we'll take you to a divisional race and see how you do there. Went to the final against a Schumacher car, not Don or Tony Schumacher, but another Schumacher, and then smoked the tires in the final there. Turned around and went right to Denver, went to my first national event and won Denver, beating Blaine Johnson on a hole shot. So, I mean,
wow.
that was to me, I didn't think I'd get any better. And obviously at that point I thought, hey, this is pretty easy. Well, I didn't win a race the rest of the year. So I found out quick that you can go from champ to chump pretty quick in this sport. So I mean, but it was so fun because you didn't have to work as hard. You met a lot of great people on the road. Me and my best friend Robert Rogers would spend 2 or 3 months on the road going to races, and that's all we did. We just traveled the NHRA circuit and went to races, barbecued, hung out, went to some of the best places you could go to, and really got to see a whole different side of drag racing for us, anyways.
That's incredible. What was the hardest adjustment from going from a high 7 car to hell, now you're down the middle fours? I mean, what's the biggest adjustment that you have to make as a driver?
Well, funny enough, for me, it was doing the burnout and doing it straight.
Really?
And making sure that the car didn't go sideways and that you were, basically doing the burnout in the right tracks. And, the guy that helped me fix that was Brad Anderson himself. So we ran a fathead Brad Anderson motor in our car, and he basically said, this is one of those things that you just have to practice at. So he would guide me to the water box, make me stop, and then start it from a dry hops, point of view, and then I'd back up and do it again. And he really, really helped me a lot. It was incredible how great Brad Anderson was, and I think that was the biggest thing for me, because I really wanted to go fast and really didn't care about, wasn't worried about the speed or the G-forces or anything else. I mean, just going out there and running, in the 6-second range to me was just out of control fast. So I was really excited about it, and it was just amazing how pumped up you can get when you're in something like that.
Yeah, but I think it's hard for people to realize that, to go fast, there is skill involved. It's not just pointing it straight and hitting the go pedal. And especially when you're talking about the kind of speeds that you're reaching now. The thing I really like to know is, who are some of the VW guys that you raced against that really gave you a good race every time?
Oh, God, definitely Gene Berg himself.
Really?
I mean, Dominic Lupino. Oh, my gosh, there's so many. I mean, because Jack was out there, and Ron Loomis had cars out there, and it was always exciting because we were racing, friends,
Uh-huh.
All the people I hung out with were the people I raced against during the weekends. There were just so many good people out there and so many different cars. But I had to say, Gene Berg was definitely the stiffest competition that we really had. A funny car, I don't know if anybody remembers the Red Ryder, which was the basically convertible Carmen Ghia that everybody thought that we were competing against with our funny car when we brought that out. And our biggest thing was to make a car that would go down the track and do it every time, you know. So that was a big thing for us, but there just wasn't enough cars in that class, so you'd end up running like a quick 8 or what have you. But it was so much fun. I mean, I just can't tell you how exciting it was back then. I mean, I'm still having fun today, but this is a very corporate world, and this is a job. And obviously, driving a Top Fuel car is an adventure in itself. That's for sure.
Well, I was going to actually now, didn't your sister race VWs back in the day?
Yeah, the 56 that I started driving when I first came out, that was my dad's car. She took over when I went into the dragster, and she drove that for quite some time. And we had a motor together that would run, in the 12-second area, and she did very good, actually. She was a natural, and she had a blast doing that. She soon got married and had a kid, and, it's kind of hard to do everything. So at the same time, I was so involved in what I was doing that we just couldn't seem to spread ourselves out enough to take care of everything and do everything the right way, because we were trying to do it professionally. We wanted to go to NHRA drag racing and do it all the time, and the VW, the bug-ins and everything were were so much fun, but at the same time, they were kind of winding down, and the tracks were starting to go away, and you found yourself traveling so far. Fremont got closed down, then Orange County got closed down, and I mean, all my stomping grounds, all the places I loved. Bakersfield, we were still able to go to.
Right.
LA County Raceway. I never drag raced at Lions, so I mean, that was a little bit before my time. So it was one of those things where we just had to get focused on where we were going. And I'll tell you, once we got in the Top Fuel deal, everything had to take a back seat, personal life and otherwise.
Well, now, you had a little trouble in Bristol. How are you doing after that? How does one recover? Well, I got to ask you how you went out the next day and raced. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't understand what that takes.
I'm not sure either. That is a good question. Well, it's just one of those things where I've had a few incidents along the way. Nothing in Bristol. It's one of those things that you get off the horse and you get bucked off like that, and for some unknown reason, I was able to walk away from that one. I think I probably had some angels on my shoulder that weekend, and was very lucky. And obviously, Dad kept my mean ass around for certain reasons. Why, I don't know, but he must have something else in store for me. But I was really wanting to get back in the car 2 days later, and Wes Cerny has always taken good care of me, and he's still my crew chief, and Tony Shortall is the assistant crew chief. And these guys keep me safe, and I got the best group of guys out there, I feel. And it's one of those things where I don't do a lot of work on the race cars anymore. I drive it, I manage the team, I kind of keep what's going on with the sponsors going, sponsor relations, and packing the parachute, mixing the fuel, and just kind of overseeing what's going on with the guys. So it's one of those things where you just got to put it in the back of your head, not to mention once they start up one of these things that has 8,000 horsepower behind it, you forget about everything else pretty quickly.
Now, what's the biggest thing you've learned this year by going through 5 cars? I mean, winning is great, but don't you believe that you learn a lot more when you have some adversity? And you've had a little bit of that this year.
Well, we've had no luck whatsoever. I mean, I have to say, if we won any round, we've earned it. And it's, even up to last weekend in Dallas, not qualifying, just getting behind the 8 ball, it's come to where the competition is so stiff and so tight, and there's so many good cars out there. If you don't do well on your Friday night session, you have a chance of not making the field. And we were basically, our cars succumbed to that last weekend, and it's a tough deal, I'll tell you. The older I get, I have to work twice as hard to keep up with some of the younger kids out there that really have no fear. But at the same time, it's when the car's not running right that you find out how good a driver you are in one of these cars. So some of these kids, they have a lot to learn. Not that they don't have any natural talent, but it's just seats. Oh gosh, you drive by the seat of your pants, and they need to learn so much. And keeping the thing straight, keeping it in the groove, knowing when the tires are spinning, when to pedal it, when not to pedal it, when to shut it off, knowing when it's nosing over and it's getting ready to hydraulic or blow up. And it's one of those things where it's come to pass that we have to make it within a certain realm to make sure that we get good TV time.
Right.
And going out there and blowing stuff up and oiling the track down just doesn't get it done anymore.
Are you amazed that this is, for the last 17 years, you've been able to compete at this level?
Well, I feel like we've kind of let some of our sponsors down because I'm not used to being in the back of the pack, being number 10. I'm really more used to being in the top 5 or running for the championship, and we did for so many years that it kind of alludes to the fact that there is a lot of better cars out there, a lot more competition, once again, a lot more parity in the class. So it's become kind of like pro stock. But at the same time, I love it. Very competitive, no different than I was the first time I got in a car. So yeah, I'm a little, I guess, saddened by the outcome of this season. But with people like Fram and Nautiline Torco Racing Fuels, Jegs, and FabTech, which is a hometown sponsor for me, and then Pure Power Lubricants, which is also hometown, and GMC and Mac Tools. I mean, these are the people that I've grown up with and that have worked with me year in and year out, whether it's been a good year or a bad year. So I guess I'm very fortunate that off the track we do so much with these people, and the fans themselves have been so gracious to keep, wanting a guy like myself to keep on winning races. So I think that's what keeps me going also.
Well, because of this year, what would you think you've learned this year? What has this year taught you so far? I mean, with the adversity, you're a guy who has always been, I got it right here, 7th all-time, 29 Top Fuel wins and 48 final rounds. That puts you 6th all-time. You're 6th all-time for the 4.463 and 332 miles an hour, 2-time U.S. national champ. I mean, what does a year like this teach a guy like you that competes at such a high level?
Well, I think you find out what you're made out of. I mean, if people can get through the tough times and keep on going, it shows the adversity. It shows that everybody's willing to do it. And my team is that tough, and they are that good. And we will turn this thing around for our sponsors and for myself. I mean, it just makes me want to drive that much harder. Other than that, learning how to crash gracefully, I guess I've learned that this year too. So,
hey, no more of that.
Reel, but I think I'll never see the end of. That's for sure.
Now, at some point, you're going to have to retire in I don't know, 20 or 30 years from racing. What would you like to do other than race?
Well, I'd like to find myself in owner's position, owning the Top Fuel car or a funny car, and managing it and teaching a younger driver, the ropes and how to obtain sponsorship and how to keep sponsors and what this is all about. This is about corporate America nowadays. It's not about just getting in the seat and, going 4.5 seconds over 330 miles an hour. Driving the car seems to be a small part of it nowadays. So I think that I'd like to do that. I think I'd be very successful at it. And with Mark and Andy Carrier, as the owners of all this, I've been able to do that. They give me the room and the ability to make the calls and decisions between everything of hiring and firing to, where the sponsors are located at, what kind of cars we have, who we work with as far as motors and equipment. And then I just let people like Wes Cerny and Tony Shortall take care of the team and the team members. So it's one of the things where I'd love to go ahead and manage it and probably take some young kid out of the alcohol ranks and teach him the ropes and just sit back and watch and hopefully make it a big enough deal to maybe add a couple cars and become the next Don Schumacher or the John Force or what have you and have the multi-car teams like the Colettas do.
Right. Now, didn't I read somewhere that you have some open wheel aspirations?
Well, to this point, very small aspirations, because it is a whole different deal, let me tell you. I've tried some dirt modified cars. Now, as fun as that was, I don't think that's for me. Definitely. I think I should stay on the asphalt. I tried to drive a couple super trucks, not really realizing what setups are and what they do. I think I've got a lot there. Now, I do like the open wheel cars are big. I've done a lot of the go-kart stuff still. Me and Ron Capps, Gary Selzy, even David Baca's and run with us a couple times. And Gary and Ron and myself are very competitive and always within, a couple carts of each other. And it's one of those things where I really get the feel of that. So if I ever had the chance, I would think my next thing would be either a Nextel car, or maybe an asphalt modified, get back in one of those. That's kind of where my true love is. I love the asphalt. Don't care if I'm turning left or if I'm going straight, but at the same time, if I ever had a chance, I think Indy or, kart, IRL, something like that would be something I'd love to try.
Well, kind of getting back to VWs. Are you amazed that VW drag racing is still hanging around?
No, not really. I mean, I think it's gotten bigger and better. I love to see the new cars, the new pieces, the new people. it's one thing when I go to the magazine rack. I mean, I'm looking for hot VWs every time I get there, and I'm still looking through it to see, who's the new up and comers, who's done something cool lately. And I get a lot of people to bring the old magazines with the, like back in '86 with the funny car on the cover, and
I have
R.K. Smith and everybody there that did so much for me. It's so funny to see myself then and see myself now.
Well, actually, I have that issue, the '86 issue with the funny car on the front, and I was actually flipping through some other issues and finding little mentions of you're racing against this person, that person. How much of a thrill was that back then to get into hot VWs?
Oh, God, I was just a young punk kid. Are you kidding? It was huge. I mean, to be going to school and be able to walk in and, people are going, hey, man, I saw you on the cover of Hot VW, And that was, again, thank you to R.K. Smith. I mean, he was a guy back then, and he's still doing it today. I mean, everybody kind of looks for their mentor as far as, who's writing about you and who's taking the pictures and, who's going to put you on the front of their magazine. I mean, now I try to get on the cover of National Dragster, which has eluded me for a while. But at the same time, all those people that helped me out back then, I can't thank them enough, from the Bergs and all the people to, even Jack. And I mean, Jack and I are friends now. I think we were basically total enemies at one point in time. And at one point in time, I mean, I just hung out with people like Pat and it's just one of those things that it's come so far, and I'm glad to see it going and continuing, and what Ron Loomis has done for the sport. I think that's awesome. People like Jesse James and what Jesse's done in that sport, and traveled over into the Top Fuel area and done some stuff with the Colettas. And
right.
Jesse and I see each other, and it's all about the old times. Back then, I mean, my God, I used to own a detail company that used to clean all Jesse's cars.
Really?
So this goes way back. I've known Jesse forever. So I think Jesse's doing a great job on TV. He's real, and that's what I like. I mean, I'm kind of still your put up or shut up type of guy, and so is Jesse. If I can't back it up, then I'm not going to talk it, and that's kind of how Jesse's been from the very beginning. I think that's what made him so famous on TV.
Well, that's interesting that you bring that up, because the thing that I found refreshing when we had him on the show is, he was right back there in the day when he was talking about VWs. It put him right back into that frame of mind, just kind of like our conversation is going right now. I mean, there's something about VW drag racing, VWs in general, that just, you forget about all the other stuff and you're just right back in it. And it was awesome. Now, did you happen to see the Pinks episode that had the VW bug in it?
No, and I missed that one, and it kills me because I didn't even get to record it or TiVo it nowadays and see that one. And I mean, people told me about it, and I talked to a couple guys, but I did not get to see that, so I was kind of crushed on that one.
We're gonna have to take care of you on that, because they're getting ready to raffle that car off, and that was driven by Jason Laufer. I'm sure you know the Laufers at VW Paradise.
Oh yeah, definitely. They've done a great job, and it's people like them that keep the sport going, and especially on the VW side.
Are you amazed that VWs are going 200 plus now?
Yeah, I really am, actually. I mean, at the same time, I see that, I'm blown away, because, I mean, at our time, even in the funny car without the body on it, 177 was about as fast as we could go. And I mean, at one point in time, I even put 5% nitro in the thing to see if that would help it, and all I did was jack the heads off of it. So I did more repairing than I did anything else. But I'm really happy to see that they've been able to go that fast and as quick as they're going also at the same time.
Well, Cory, I appreciate you taking the time to come on the show and talk to us about VWs and relive some of that. And, of course, I wish you luck for the rest of the year. And matter of fact, the VW community always pulls for you. So just know that. Well,
I sure appreciate that. And like I said, I really would like to make it out to a race sometime, even if it's just to be a spectator and kind of walk around. And I like to, hook up with some of the people from the past. Pat Nelson also. I mean, he taught me a lot about the turbo side of things before I even got hooked up with the K-Well. So a lot of good friends, and I know that we've lost some of them, but at the same time, I sure would like to see a race and just kind of sit back. Maybe I can sit back, drink a beer, and eat a burger and watch them.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Cory Mac, ladies and gentlemen.
So call it divine intervention. Call it goodwill.